Hello there. I've been thinking about Rush recently. You know why? 'Cause I've been talking about jazz a lot, haven't I? There's been a lot of jazz going on this channel. And I think when I get too deep in the jazz, then all my sort of rock, metal and proggy roots pull me back in. I've recently reviewed an Avenged Sevenfold album, and after having to listen to so much jazz that jazz fans were sending me saying, check this guy out, this is innovative and new, and I'd put it on and go, well, yes, it's nice, but I don't know, I feel like I've heard it before. Then I go and put that Avenged Sevenfold album on, and I'm like, oh my god, what the hell is this? Just before I shot this video, some guitar company or amp company have put out a video of Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, and he's there playing the guitar, and I watch it and I go, oh my god, that guy is something else. You know, what the hell did that guy do to guitar? There's me saying that no one's coming out and innovating, and there's Tom Morello, you know, albeit, yeah, 20, 25 years ago, but there's someone who pushed the guitar forward. Where's that happening in jazz, right? So all of you have clicked on this video because you want to hear about Rush. You're going, oh no, Andy's talking about jazz. So I heard a little bit of Rush the other day, and I have this dichotomy going on with myself. I've got the very sort of sophisticated, you know, well-read about jazz and jazz history, and I'm a jazz fan and I've got all these cool records, you know, but I'm also a visceral rocker. Okay, you know, I've recently done a video on Extreme, No Betancourt, and talked about that whole hair metal scene. And I've recently done a video on Chico Hamilton, you know, who comes out of that very cool West Coast jazz scene, okay? Rush are really important because I think Rush, in terms of progressive rock artists, Rush represent that sort of visceral rock energy, right? They are a rock band. They're a rock band like Zeppelin, but they're also a prog band. And that is their winning formula. You know, in doing that, they have laid the groundworks for prog metal, for thrash metal, metalcore. It's all back there with Rush. They really did something important when they put all those influences together, I think, right? But the question is, over their huge 50-year career and over 19 albums, how many of those albums were actually prog albums? And how much of them was something else? So what I decided to do was I thought I will rate their albums, not in terms of greatness, but in terms of progginess. And I've come up with the 10 most prog Rush albums, and I'm going to rate them from 10 to 1. Now, some of these albums on this list are incredible proggy, but when you start to get lower down the list, we have to ask the question of how prog is this? It's quite surprising how many albums we could actually deem as prog by this band, who are known as being like the kings of progressive rock in a way. You know, I mean, it's if you start talking about non-UK progressive rock bands, Rush could well be the most important, most popular and most influential of all the bands outside the UK, only really challenged by who? Yes, ELP. You know, they are top tier prog, right? When I talk about Rush and I mention certain albums, people are very quick to chime in and go, well, that's not a progressive rock album, it's not really prog, right? So this is an interesting challenge. So I want to talk about 10 albums, and I'm going to, you know, rate them in terms of progginess, and we're going to go from 10 to 1. So if you take all the albums as a whole, and you pull out the 10 most proggiest albums, which I've done, languishing at number 10 is Grace Under Pressure. Right, Grace Under Pressure came out around about, was it be 83, 84, okay? When the 1980s came in, a lot of the prog-loving Rush fans, myself including, we sort of slowly moved away from Rush as they started to take all those sort of influences from the Police and loads of synthesizers. Once Alex's guitars, you know, went into the background and we no longer had the epics, right? They turned into a very sophisticated 80s pop band at this point. This really happens with the album Signals that came out before Grace Under Pressure. And Signals was really was a genre changer. You know, I was such a Rush fan when Signals came out, and I can remember buying it and I liked it, because it still had residual prog influences. Then I waited for the next album, and that was Grace Under Pressure. This is barely a prog album, if you could describe it as a prog album at all. It's probably a stronger album than Signals. I think the songwriting's stronger. The lyrics are much darker. I think there's a change here where they no longer use Terry Brown as the producer, so the sound changed. And I got to be honest, when I bought Grace Under Pressure, I didn't like the sound of it. I thought it had just gone too 80s. Whereas Signals, even though it's not proggy Rush stuff, it still sounds like Rush to my ears. Grace Under Pressure is barely a prog album. I would say it's not a prog album. It's more proggy than Presto or Hold Your Fire, but it's barely a prog album. And I've got it at number 10. And at number 9, I have the aforementioned Signals, which is slightly more proggy. Even though it's a bunch of short pop songs, we still have, tracks like Countdown that tell stories and go into that non-pop song structure. Losing It has got that incredible violin instrumental part in it. And I feel, even though the songs are pulled in, when you actually listen to what's going on technically within the band, there's a little bit of prog. We could call Signals prog influenced, right? So that's what I've got at number 9. Now at number 8, I have their last album, Clockwork Angels. And Clockwork Angels, what an album to go out on. It's an incredible album. It's probably, for me, after Moving Pictures, it's probably their, and when I say after Moving Pictures, chronologically after Moving Pictures, at the point where I start to lose interest. And all those albums that came afterwards, I think it's probably their strongest one. There's a couple of longer tunes on there. There's tunes that start to come in at 6-7 minutes, and they're doing a lot of the old prog stuff. Again, I checked it out again and listened to it. I have a big difficulty with the production. The production's, it's not as precise and pristine, and that's what I love about Rush. There's all that accuracy, that they used to have, which they fought for back in the 1970s, because they were recording everything on tape. They had to play like that and really nail it. And if you actually go in and listen to the sort of 70s Rush and you really put your head into it, and I once did a playthrough of YYZ. The tempos were all over the place. It was a certain sound that they had that made them sound like perfect, but they weren't perfect. By the time we get to this point, the production's just a little bit too much and pro-tooled, but some of the compositions are great. I think Geddy Lee's does a great vocal performance on Clockwork Angels, and it's a very strong album. And I would say, what percentage are we going to say that's prog? 30% perhaps for Clockwork Angels. So we're not really full on prog yet, and we've only got like 6 albums left. At number 6, I have the masterpiece, which is Moving Pictures, my favourite album by Rush, and the one that I have consistently put in the 10 greatest progressive rock albums, only to be confronted with angry prog fans going, Moving Pictures, is it prog? Right? I think from now on, Moving Pictures is a prog album, but it's an 80s prog album. And I think they pioneered on Permanent Waves and Moving Pictures a new way of playing progressive rock. Okay? I know the songs are shorter. I know that there's synthesizers on and all that stuff that Rush fans had difficulty with, and all that type of stuff on Moving Pictures. But for me, Tom Sawyer is just so full of, instrumental virtuosity, incredible time signatures. It doesn't have a normal pop song format. It goes all over the place. Red Barchetta is like a little epic that tells a story. YYZ is probably the greatest prog instrumental ever made. Is it really? Limelight's more poppy. Vital Signs is pretty poppy. But Camerite is a full-on epic. It's a 10-minute epic that does everything that a progressive rock tune should do. And Witch Hunt's about bloody witches. How more proggy can you get than that? I was just about to say, you don't hear Michael Jackson doing songs about witches, did you? You wouldn't hear that, but then he did do songs about zombies, didn't he? So, is Thriller prog? That's another video, isn't it? So, yeah, at number 6, I got Moving Pictures, a masterpiece. And I would say that that's definitely a prog album, but we have to handle it with care, don't we? Right? It's and so how many have we got? So we got 10, 9, 8, 7. So that was number 7. Sorry, I can't count. At number 6, we have Permanent Waves. Permanent Waves is the great change. That's the album where they do start to move away from the progressive rock roots. It's still on full on prog. It's got tracks like Jacob's Ladder on it. It's just insane. The some of the stuff, I forgot that. Natural Science is one. It's one of Rush's greatest epics, really. Permanent Waves is a beautiful example of how to go into the 80s still being a prog band, still being an out-and-out prog band, but also being radio friendly as well. It's an incredible achievement. I think anyone who loves Rush will not be let down by that album. And I think for me, the great innovation of Rush is not just the integration of heavy rock and prog, but then taking that and binding that up in a form that could go into the 80s. And we really can see that bands like Dream Theater and all those sort of prog metal bands, they really have their roots in that 80s prog sound. In these two albums, Permanent Waves and Moving Pictures, I think they're so important. This is where Rush, their absolute peak creatively and in terms of innovation. These two albums, for me, would always be at the top, I think, of the list. But in terms of progginess, they're definitely prog albums. I ain't going to have the argument. But they're not out-and-out prog albums, right? At number 5, we have an out-and-out prog album. And we also have the first time that they start to delve in to prog, which is, of course, Fly By Night, their second album. Their first album, the self-titled Rush, is, of course, it's basically a Led Zeppelin copy album, isn't it? It's a band that love Led Zeppelin and have taken on all that on board, and there's little bits of other bands as well in there. But really, it's just a rock album. It's a great rock album. It really is. It's some incredible stuff on there. But without Neil Peart, the chemistry, the magic hasn't happened. When Neil Peart comes in with that virtuoso drum style and his incredible lyrics that pull in all these literary forms and pulling in literary forms into your music is a thing that makes you prog. Fly By Night contains like Biter on the Snow Dog. It's got a whole ton of stuff that is really, really, really proggy. It sets the benchmark for prog metal. It could be well argued to be the very first prog metal album. Do you think? Can you think of anything else that does what Fly By Night does? And of course, they followed that up with Caress of Steel, right, which I've got at number 4, which is even more proggy than Fly By Night because it contains their first sidelong epic, The Fountains of Limneth or Lamneth. I never know which one it was. Fountains of Limneth. Now, in terms of prog epics, The Fountains of Limneth is pretty poor. It's basically loads of little ideas just chopped together. They don't quite know what they're doing on this album. The Necromancer is incredible, but again, that's just a jam, isn't it? You know, they don't quite know how to extend the music on that album. It's a fantastic album with some great stuff on it. When I was a kid, I absolutely loved it. As I've got older, I can see its shortcomings. I really can. But in terms of prog, they have upped the progginess. And in upping the progginess, they are faced with commercial disaster. You know, this album comes out and no one's interested. They go on it, but it's called the Down the Tubes tour. You know, they're on their last legs, you know. So they decided to follow that up with 2112, which I've got at number 3. 2112, they go, well, let's just go out with a bang. But I think by that time, the experience of making Fly By Night and Caress of Steel is they finally nail how to write a sidelong epic, and 2112 is one of the great progressive sidelong epics. It's incredible. I always thought the album, the tracks on side 2 are very, very good, but they're not quite in the same league as 2112. And for me personally, and it's only my personal opinion, I do think 2112 drags a little in the middle. So I know people love it. It's their favourite Rush album. I think it is a masterpiece. But for me personally, there's a couple of albums that are greater in terms of progginess. But what's interesting here, when we go through this list, now we're at number 3, we have got 5 albums: Grace Under Pressure, Signals, Clockwork Angels, Moving Pictures and Permanent Waves, which some people might not say are prog albums. And then we just come down to 5 albums. Fly By Night and Caress of Steel, which can be seen as not fully successful and not that great. And so now we've come down to 3 albums left, right? 2112, which is without a doubt a masterpiece. And then we've got 2 left. Hemispheres and Farewell to Kings. Now, I've got to be honest, I've been like this. Which one's going to be at number 1? Which is the most proggiest? There's a strong argument that Hemispheres is the greatest achievement in terms of Rush's progginess. It's an absolutely beautiful album. It's way better than 2112. They never put a foot wrong on that album. It's their best sidelong epic. It's so well played. It's so complex and sophisticated. The Trees is like another mini epic. It's like if I wanted to say what is prog to someone, you know, somebody asked me that, I could play them The Trees and they would get what prog is. Circumstances is a brilliant song that really points to the future, what they're going to be doing on Permanent Waves and Moving Pictures. And of course, La Villa Strangiato, that's an incredible instrumental prog tune, only rivalled in the whole of prog by probably YYZ. Hemispheres is the perfect album. I'm starting to think I should have put it at number 1. But at number 1, I've put Farewell to Kings. Now, the reason why Farewell to Kings slightly trumps Hemispheres is Hemispheres has got a really modern sound to it. It's really a precursor to prog metal. We really can hear that technical sort of dystopian futuristic sound. They take this sort of ancient Greek myth, but because it's mixed in with that sort of Cygnus X1, it has this sort of science fiction sound to me. It's quite futuristic. Farewell to Kings has that woody English aesthetic that I'm always going on about. Now, people will have a go at me and say, you know, when you say that English aesthetic is important to prog, it just knocks out all these non-prog bands. Farewell to Kings is dripping with the English aesthetic, right? It's just dripping with it. Both Hemispheres and Farewell to Kings were recorded over in Rockfield, which is a residential studio, one of the first residential studios in the world. And it's located just over an hour drive from where I am now. I have done a lot of recording in Rockfield. I've recorded in both studios. So I have recorded drums in the same studio that Neil Peart recorded Hemispheres of Farewell to King. And the little quadrangle, the little open air space where they set up 2 microphones and Alex Lifeson walked from one microphone to the other, creating that panning acoustic guitar. And if you listen to the background, you can hear the English countryside, you can hear the birds singing. That was recorded in that quadrangle, and the amount of time I've parked my car there to pull my kit out to do a recording session is, you know, I've done it so many times and marvelled at it. I think it's the same place where Chris Martin from Coldplay wandered out with lacking inspiration, and he needed a new lyric for his song Yellow, and he went out for a cigarette, and one of the guys in the band turned around and said to him, "Well, look at the stars." Right, it's the same place where they recorded Bohemian Rhapsody. It's an absolutely historic place. You know something, I wouldn't it be great for me to pop down to Rockfield and do a little tour? It's an incredible place. I wonder if they'd let me do that. That would be a brilliant video. If you sign up to my Patreon and I can get a little bit more cash and I can start doing YouTube full time, that's the sort of stuff I'm going to do. I'm going to go down Rockfield and show you the history. You know, show you the bedroom where you know, Noel Gallagher and Liam Gallagher had a big row and he jumped out the window and went running off, and all those stories. There's an incredible documentary actually out there on Rockfield. But I think the English aesthetic, it doesn't happen so much. It's on there on Hemispheres, but that English aesthetic, that folky, woody sort of English countryside sound, the sound of medieval England. You know, where you feel that there's like court jesters walking around playing lutes. You know, that is the thing that will take prog from here up to here. And that's what we have on Farewell to Kings. Of course, Farewell to Kings is a lament. Think of the title. It's a lament, right? They are saying goodbye to that sword and sorcery, English folky, you know, mystical wizards and Tolkien type of folk. They're saying goodbye to it. And when you listen to that album, it starts off in sort of Elizabethan England, and we go through all those things. We have Xanadu, which is perhaps And God, they're so bloody good, aren't they, Rush? That's an incredible epic. It just is way better than anything on 2112. But as the album goes through and we get to Cygnus X1, we start to hear that futuristic dystopian sound, which is going to really be the bedrock of 80s prog, especially prog metal. Going to finish with a story. I was chatting to some of my students, and they're into Zeppelin and Hendrix and a load of real, good classic rock stuff. They're really into all that. And when I was chatting to them one day, and I started talking about Rush, and they glazed over, and I was like, well, you know Rush, don't you? And they were like, no, Andy, we've never actually heard Rush. We don't know what they're like. They're like sort of proggy band, aren't they? Sort of bit cheesy, aren't they? And I said, have you not heard Rush? And they went, no. So I pulled out Cygnus X1. And when it gets to the middle section, and there's that incredible section of music where you're just hearing all these spacey swirling sounds, and then Geddy Lee comes in with the bass, and it seems to be coming out of the ether, and he goes down, down, ba-da-dum, and there's that gap, bow, bow, ba-da-bam, bam, bam. What's happening? Bow, bow, ba-da-dum. Another big gap. Where are we? We're in space. Bow, bow, ba-da-bam, bam, bam. And then Neil Peart kicks in. Bow, bow, ba-da-bam, bow, bow, ba-da-bam, bam, bam, bow, bow, ba-da-bam. And my students, I looked at them and they were going, what is this? This is the most messed up, druggy, psychedelic thing they'd ever heard in their life. They were absolutely blown away by this. The power of Rush. The power of Rush on young adolescent boys. It's such an important thing. It really is. It takes you down that, it's Rush inoculates you against girls, doesn't it? If you think about it, you're a teenage boy, you're going on playing a bit of drums, playing the guitar, you're about to go into that world, that was personified by rock and roll of dating and girls and going out and partying and having fun and being like that, the whole Motley Crue world, right? You're about to go in that, then you discover Rush. It inoculates you from that, right? You now just sit in the house listening to Rush and reading philosophy and Rush are probably responsible for that whole incel culture that we have now. See, this is the influence of this band. It inoculates you. You can focus on learning Rush songs and trying to get your head around YYZ. Without that, there would be no virtuosity in rock music. All those bands like Joy Division and Punk and all that, they would have taken over completely. What would have happened? Everyone would have forgotten how to play musical instruments. I can't even get my words out. I'm getting so irate by this at the moment. So irate. I was going to wound the video up, but I've just gone off on one. I've had too much coffee, and you are getting an Edwards off on a tangent at the end of this video. I have gone off on one. Rush, the great band that created musicianship in rock music and the whole incel structure. This needs to be celebrated. I was on the internet today and I started to read about the doomsday clock. A little bit like that clock that's on the front of Clockwork Angels or whatever it's called, that where it's got the little things pointing to all the alchemical symbols. And if you look at the time on Clockwork Angels, what time is it saying? 2112, that's what it's saying. You look, it's on 24-hour clock, of course. I think Russia are always going to use a 24-hour clock. 2112, a little nod to them, going, yeah, we're going back to our prog roots here. I love this band. There's so much interest and all that stuff. Anyway, I was reading about the doomsday clock. This is this thing that exists, and you can go on the internet and you can check it out, right? The doomsday clock. It was created in 1947 because they really were worried that the end of the world was coming, and it was set at 7 minutes to 12. I just watched Noam Chomsky talking about this on Piers Morgan's show. I am really off on a tangent now, sorry, it's got nothing to do with Rush. So I thought I'll go and check this clock out. I went there this morning. It's on 90 seconds to doomsday. We're at 90 seconds to doomsday at the moment. Here I am talking about Rush. Right, here I am talking about Rush, and we're 90 seconds to doomsday. It could all be gone soon, right? It's like the Russians have blown up that massive dam in the Ukraine. It's like it's all flooded. What the hell's going on? Oh my, I do not get it. Everyone's turning on each other. We've got all these ideologies. The internet's out of control. They've invented AI. You know, you'll probably be all murdered by AI in the future and replaced by an AI version of you, and nobody will know. It'll be like invasion of the body snatchers. People will be knocked out and replaced by, you know, virtual versions of our own, because nobody will go out. You know, you think you're chatting to your mom, but you're not chatting to your mom. You're chatting to a robot, and that robot's trying to sell you stuff that will go into your brain and turn you into some matrix-dwelling zombie. You know, it's, oh my God, we're living in these strange times. You know, what can you do about it? What can you do? Right? It's terrifying. You know what I do? I just, you know, I encase myself off in the world of music over here. I go over to here like this. Oh, please help me, records, help me. You deliver me from this terrible world that we're in, where all the music's made by computers and AI's doing anything and nobody can play any instruments anymore. Not like Rush in the old days. You know, and the whole point of this is, like, if you'll get wound up by something I'm saying, always remember there's a little wry smile. There's a little wry smile here. This is a game. YouTube's a game, right? You know who I got that off? Mizzy, that kid that's gone around doing the pranks. I feel sorry for him. I don't like him going into people's houses and doing all that stuff. I don't like it, but he's playing the game. We're all playing the game at the moment, right? I have to play the game to get you to watch. You know, I played the game today. I've done a ranking video. Prog fans love that because they're so anal retentive. Oh, Andy's got another list again. I'll see if I agree with that. And they click on the list just to see if I agree. But what I try and do is take it to a place where I can get to underneath what's going on. And I think this doesn't seem to make sense. But the fact is, when I'm talking about jazz and getting involved in all these arguments on the internet and everything that's going on, I can go back to this cozy, comfortable world of me being 13 years old. And it's personified by Rush. It's like a comfy chair that I can sit in, right? And I can be taken off. And I can deal with culture and all that because they talk about it. But they talk about it in a certain place. This is what art does. This is what music does. It's a safe place to talk about this stuff, right? It's supposed to be fun. And that's why I bring in a little bit of fun into my videos and I try and get a wry smile out of you. Okay, so I did go off on a tangent on that, didn't I? That was quite good. I didn't mean to. They're the best bits. They're the best bits, right? It's so hard to do. I come in here and sit down. You know, I thought today, shall I do a video about YouTube? No one's going to click on that. You lot aren't interested in anything else but music, you know, progressive rock or jazz. That's all you're interested in. You're not interested in me talking about YouTube. I thought, shall I do a video on postmodernism, how that's influenced music? Yeah, that's going to go down, you know, like a lead balloon, isn't it, if I put that up? Postmodernism in music, you know, considered by Andy Edwards. Who wants to hear me going on about Foucault and Derrida and how it influenced Joy Division and, you know, Black Sabbath? Who wants to hear that, really? Right? It's an important thing because I keep mentioning postmodernism on this channel, and I'm sure people are going, yeah, Andy keeps mentioning, but what the hell is postmodernism? So it'd be a useful video to do, but I'm not here to teach you. I'm here to entertain you. Right? I'm here for you. You sort of people who watch this channel have got to know me, right? And you know that I'm going to come on here, and you know that there's no quality to these videos. I'm looking at a camera and I'm talking to you, and I'm just talking off the top of my head. I take something that I think you might click on, and then I try and take you on a journey, right? So this morning I thought, I need to talk about YouTube. I need to state the fact, anyone who's watching this, that I do know what the game is. This is a game, all right? This is a game. We are all, like, we're out there like everybody else trying to play a game, which I'm trying to get you to look. I'm trying to get you to click on this video, and I'm trying to get you to pull you in and keep you there. Now, the reason I want you to do that is because the way YouTube works is once you're held there, YouTube can study who you are. And they go, oh, this is a middle-aged bloke, and he works in the computer industry. He's quite anal retentive because he likes Genesis and Rush. So we can sell him like computer stuff and things like that he'll really need. And then those adverts are popping in, and all the way through this video, the adverts keep popping in, and that generates money. right? And that money goes to YouTube, and a little bit of it comes to me as well, right? And that's what we're here trying to catch that. We're trying to pull you into that, right? And that is really, really complex. If you're a YouTuber, you sit looking at those analytics, trying to work out what the algorithm does, right? Last week, I thought, let's really kick it in. Let's really kick it in. And I created 30 shorts, and I scheduled them all the way through for the next month. 2 a day, right? I did 2 extra videos, okay? So these shorts start to come out, and these shorts have got me playing like the introduction to YYZ. I've got exclusive footage that I took on my iPhone of me jamming with Robert Plant in a pub, titled, you know, when Robert Plant goes down the pub for a jam or whatever it was. And I thought, you know, that's going to be incredible. How many people have got that they can stick up people's noses, you know? Nobody looked, nobody watched, and then YouTube, you feel it. YouTube are going, you know that little guy Andy Edwards who does the prog and fusion videos. But he's doing, considering it's prog and fusion, he's doing all right. You know, he's doing all right. But he's stuck some videos out. They've only got like 200 views. I think he needs to be. We need to just stop sending people there. He's obviously. He's gone awry, you know, and when you make YouTube videos, it sends you, every time you put a video up, it sends a message out to you. This video is not getting the usual views because you're obviously doing something that nobody likes, you idiots. You know, so start making videos you like, right? Start talking about Genesis, you know, it doesn't actually say that, but it may as well. And the algorithm ignores you, it pushes you off. And then people on the comments come in and they say, can you do a video about this? I'd like to see a video about that. And they ask all these esoteric weird things. If I did videos on those, it would just not get any views. I have to play the game, right? But the thing is, I play the game for a reason. And the reason I play the game is because I like to try and get myself into a situation which is a little bit like a jazz musician, where I can get into a flow state. It's actually quite hard to do. If you watch this video when I started off, you'll hear I was stumbling with my words. That was as I was trying to form the argument. I'm trying to take this idea of Rush and the idea of progginess, of boundaries, of history, and I thought it's interesting. It's interesting to think that Rush only made 3 successful masterpiece prog albums out of 19 albums. They only made 3, and yet their reputation for prog is untouchable. That's really interesting. It shows the achievement of those albums. That's an interesting idea. That's an interesting idea. But when I start up, I want to try and get to a point where I don't know where I'm going, right? So I am not doing this to preach to you. I am not doing this to show how much I know. I am doing this myself to learn. What I find is if I can get into this flow state and I start talking, it's like you start to channel something else. And all these ideas that are floating around you, like the doomsday clock, you know, and how YouTube works, the failure of these short videos that I put up last week, is Rush a prog band? You know, what makes jazz jazz? Is all modern jazz crap? You know, who killed jazz? All those ideas are flowing around and they're all in the ether, right? And actually, you guys, if I get it right, you come and watch. Right, you come and watch, and if I can get this right, you stay, because you don't know where I'm going with this, right? And that keeps you interested. And if somebody watches a video and then they realise they've missed something, they come back, you know. So, you know, people who have managed to get to the end of this video, I'm now, what am I going to talk about next? You haven't got a clue, right? It's almost like anti-YouTube. I've pulled you in, but I'm keeping you here because we don't know what's going to happen next. I literally don't know what's going to happen next, right? This video is supposed to be 20 minutes long. I'm telling you, this is proper postmodernism, meta, self-referential video. This video is collapsed in on itself, and you're suddenly seeing the inner workings, like Brecht's, like a Brechtian character, when he turns to the camera and starts to talk to the camera and breaks that third, fourth wall, doesn't he? You know, and you suddenly go, oh my God, I'm watching a play, I'm watching a film. And what I've done here is you are seeing a YouTuber that always looks at you. Actually, I look slightly past you, don't I? Because I want it to look like I'm talking to someone over there. I could talk to you like that, but I think that's a bit weird, isn't it, if I talk to you like that? Don't you think that's a bit strange, me doing that? And can you move your head back? Or I'll go right back to here and look. I don't know. I think it's better like that. It's like there's a conversation going on, right? But I suddenly, the whole thing's just collapsed in on itself. It's collapsed in on itself. We are suddenly seeing the workings of my mind and how these videos work. You know, so for example, I'm going to do this now, and I've never done this before, right? Well, I might have done, but for the video, it's good that I haven't done it. I'm going to swizzle the camera around. You're going to get a view you never get. So if I just do this and move the camera around now, I'm moving around, you can see this is where I exist, right? This is my studio all the way around, and you will eventually end up, if I could just swizzle my thing around, with the outside that's what I look at when I'm doing my videos. A bit of greenery, a bit of English, you know, aesthetic I can get my inspiration from. Sometimes I open the windows. I did a video recently on my Patreon where I just stopped talking and we listened to the sounds that were going on in my studio. If I keep going, you'll get a nice shot of a plug there, and it goes around like that. And you come back, if I could just do that there, sorry about this. And you're back to me here, right? It's strange, isn't it? The world's strange, the artifice of it all. You know what I've just done then? I've really encapsulated what postmodernism is. If you don't realise I have, it's no problem, but I have. Yeah, this is what we're doing here, right? I've got that out of my system. I think I've defended myself on certain things, okay? I've had my hair cut as well this morning. I've had my hair cut, I've lost my beard, there's no moustache. All these things are interesting for people. I'm going very grey. It's the other thing with YouTube, you know, if you go back to my early videos, I look like a hairy wizard, right? And now I'm turning into Rick Beato, aren't I need to do that, don't I? Once he does that jiggly thing, doesn't he? Oh God. Such is life. I think I'm definitely at the end of the video now. There's probably 4 of you still watching. Go, what, is he gonna do anything else? I want to go now. He's getting boring, but I'm scared he's going to do something else now, and I need to see it. You know, I need to see what he does. What's he going to do? I don't think I've got anything else now. I think I have reached that peak. I have plateaued, and I'm going down the other side of it. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want this level of insanity, press the like button and subscribe, and you can ring the notification bell, and that will let you know when I'm doing other stuff like this. If you really want to go further into this, right, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch the camera off and I'm going to film a Patreon video. You know why? Because I'm in the zone now. I'm in the zone. And the Patreon video will be whatever I want to talk about. I'm just going to carry on talking. So if you want to see the sequel to this, you're going to have to pay me a little bit of money by every month, haven't you? You're going to have to check on the list there. Press on the little button, go over to Patreon and pay me a bit of money. And you'll be rewarded by Andy Edwards Gold. The Andy Edwards Gold will be there. You know, stuff that you cannot imagine. Flights of fancy and realms of, you know, streams of consciousness that you cannot fathom. You cannot fathom. I promise you. You will be in awe if you go to my Patreon. You really will. I'm not overselling it at all at the moment. Right, that's the end of the video. I will see you on the next one. I apologise for that bizarre stuff at the end. If I may even cut it off, but if I haven't, it's because I really don't care and I just stick up whatever I said. Bye.